Then Valeria, you got the first question for Anka, and we will take other question one by one. When I give you the question, don't hesitate to say your name and your media outlet first for ambassador who knows some of them, but so many media outlets here represented at the UN, so sometimes he's an old man. I'm looking for a way to go back to Paris earlier. The presentation will be in French, but then you can ask in English and he will answer in English as well. So you have a translation for the introduction remarks. So we are starting now. As I just told you, Ambassador will start with a few introductory remarks, and then he will take your question. And I now hand the floor to the Ambassador. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I will speak in French, and I will let you know why. Happy New Year, everyone. I wish you all the best for you, your families, your dear ones. Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello, one and all. It is a pleasure for me and for my team to be with you here at the beginning of 2024. France will be assuming the presidency for the entire month of January. It's an important month for us, and it comes up every 15 months, more or less, based on the rotation of the Security Council. And the last time was September 2022, and no doubt you remember. It's an honor to preside over the Security Council, but it's especially a responsibility, especially at a time where there are an increasing number of crises. It's a very busy schedule, whether it's in the Middle East, Ukraine, Africa, a little bit everywhere. There are also humanitarian issues, food security issues, and proliferation, of course, all of which are major issues. The French presidency is, of course, as always, an opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the multilateralism and the values enshrined in the Charter and international law. This goal, of course, we hope to continue pursuing it, working closely with all members of the Security Council, the other 4 permanent members, of course, and the non-permanent members, especially the 5 new non-permanent members who started their terms yesterday. And so let me just mention them: Algeria, South Korea, Guyana, Slovenia, and Sierra Leone, all of whom are joining us for a 2-year term. So this is my opportunity to congratulate them and to also to wish farewell to those who left the Council the day before yesterday. It's also an opportunity under this presidency to send a signal of openness and diversity. We want the Council to be effective, so we will endeavor to avoid multiplication of meetings and have long, unending meetings, have meetings that are efficient and lead to results with working methods which are transparent and open. And of course, we intend to involve all of the relevant bodies of the UN which are should be involved, civil society, NGOs, of course, with a special emphasis on women, of course. Respect of multilingualism is important, especially for the European dimension. It's a program of work that will address a number of different topics, as always. As you know, there are meetings that are due to deadlines, reports, and mandates that have to be renewed. Syria, Yemen, the operation in Cyprus needs to be renewed before the end of the month. And then, of course, major crises, be it Gaza, of course, Ukraine also. There are a number of crises in Africa. All of them will dominate the agenda, even though there are other issues on the agenda, such as Colombia specifically, and Haiti, West Africa. So there's no lack of topics to address. My team and I are and will be available throughout the month to respond to your questions and keep you updated and informed and tell you where we are. So I'll stop there. I'm ready to answer any questions. And let me just stress that I can answer the questions as President of the Security Council, and sometimes I might answer in my national capacity, and I will always specify how I'm answering, which hat I'm wearing, because the national capacity does not always reflect agreement with the Security Council President and agreement within the Council, so let's not mix things up. So I'll endeavor to keep things straight, and I'll try and stress that throughout the month of January, making that distinction.
As it is traditional, the first question goes to Anka and its president, Valeria.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ambassador. Happy New Year. And on behalf of ANCA, we wish you the best of luck for the busy month ahead. Valeria Robecco from ANSA Newswire. So my question is on Ukraine. I wanted to ask which is the perspective on Ukraine. Russia has increased bombardment again. In the U.S., we know that the funds are kind of over now, and the Congress has not been approved the new funds yet. So, what will be the effort of the Security Council on the matter? And in your opinion, is there a hope to start negotiations about the end of the conflict by the end of the winter? Thank you so much.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Valeria.
As a president of the Security Council, the only thing I can tell is that it's pretty likely that we will have meetings on Ukraine during the month of January, maybe as soon as next week. It remains to be scheduled. And I would not be surprised that there will be a couple of meetings or more on Ukraine during the month of January. But it remains to be confirmed, and it remains to be approved by all colleagues of the Security Council. So that was as a chair. In my national capacity, I will just say that the situation in Ukraine remains extremely dire. I think it's not improving. I think it's deteriorating. You may have seen over the last days that the numbers of military actions, bombings, missiles and drones from Russia on Ukraine has increased. I think there was this response by Ukraine on Russia 2 or 3 days ago, which triggered a meeting asked by Russia. So the situation on the ground is deteriorating. We are just at the beginning of the winter. Obviously, Russia is targeting civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, targeting power plants, energy facilities, but also schools, hospitals, etc. So there is a clear agenda designed to scare the population. All of this is totally contrary to the international humanitarian law, to the Geneva Conventions. I think this whole war in Ukraine is just a blatant violation of the UN Charter, period. So I think, so I don't see any hope to see a beginning of a negotiation in a short term, but we should continue to push for this and to do whatever it takes to bring peace in this desolated country, but we'll do our best. So,
Sylviane, L'Orient du jour.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank you, President. Happy New Year. My question pertains to Lebanon and the region as a whole. The sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon is continuously being undermined. This morning, Israel targeted with strikes the Hamas office in Beirut. That attack, isn't that also an attack on Lebanon's sovereignty? I then have some other questions. I'm not sure whether I should put them to you right now. My questions about Lebanon, they're in a very tense situation. I'm talking about UNIFIL. There's an escalation in the south of Lebanon. The French forces in UNIFIL, hundreds of men, they're also being hard hit by these problems. There have been serious incidents affecting French soldiers, specifically in Kharkiv attack. France asked the Lebanese government to investigate. However, the government is an interim government, so they cannot do a great deal. Therefore, what does France expect from this corrosive situation? I also have a third question. The dangerous escalation that we see on the horizon. That's Avigdor Lieberman's call for the Israeli army to take control over part of Lebanon. They've called for the Israeli forces to take control of that part of Lebanon. What is France's clear-cut position on the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon? Something that's been reiterated, something that's been undermined continuously. This has been reiterated in a number of UN resolutions. We need to ensure the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. France's presidency at the Security Council, will it be characterized by a new approach to Lebanon and to the region at large? Thank you, President.
Merci.
Thank you for that question. As the presidency of the Security Council, it goes without saying that the situation in the Middle East will be discussed very attentively throughout January. Without a doubt, on the 23rd of January, we're going to have a high-level meeting that will be focused on the Palestinian issue, but also on the regional environment as a whole. This will be an opportunity for us to address your question. In a national capacity, France believes that the independence, the sovereignty, and the territorial integrity of Lebanon is absolutely vital. We'll continue monitoring that. France is likely to be very active on this topic, as any attacks on this independence, the sovereignty of Lebanon, will be deemed unacceptable. And not only efforts to undermine these coming from Israel, other attempts as well are unacceptable too. That's very clear-cut. Clearly, against this backdrop, UNIFIL will play a key role. It was established in 1979, following the war between Israel and Lebanon. In June and July 2006, that was reiterated. As you said, France has several hundred men, roughly 700 in UNIFIL, so we'll be following that closely. Clearly, the crisis in Gaza is a very serious factor affecting the situation. For us, the priority is ensuring that situation comes to an end, but we also want to avoid regional repercussions, regional spillover of this crisis, whether that be in the West Bank, but also between Israel and Lebanon. So France will do everything to encourage all parties involved to restore calm and avoid escalation. UNIFIL will continue to play a key role. What's important for us is that it continues to patrol the area over which it has jurisdiction. That's key. It's equally important to support the deployment and the activities of the Lebanese army. UNIFIL can't do it all, and this is clearly stated in the UN Security Council resolution. The Lebanese army will also be present in that area. As for the sovereignty, the proposals that were made, the key resolution here is UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which was adopted in July 2006. So once again, that's what I can tell you in a national capacity. We need to ensure respect for UNIFIL's mandate, a comprehensive implementation of that mandate, including patrols, and so on and so forth. An enhanced role for the Lebanese army. Right now, its role is insufficient, respect for Resolution 1701. But what's vital is we avoid regional escalation. We don't want any more tragedy in addition to the tragedy we're seeing right now in Gaza.
Carrie, pour Le Monde.
Merci beaucoup, Alex.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Mr. Ambassador, Happy New Year and good luck for this month, Presidency of the Council. Question about North Korea. The leader, Kim Jong-un, made it no secret that his goal for 2024 is to launch 3 spy military satellites. The United States has already warned that this would go against UN Security Council resolutions. And at the same time, yesterday, China and North Korea agreed that 2024 would be a year of friendship. what is your strategy for this year? What way out of the North Korean cul-de-sac? Is there any way of working with one of your partners amongst the P5 to try and bring pressure to bear and do something about this situation which just goes on and on? Answer. Thank you, Carrie. Well, in the case of North Korea, it's quite alarming because indeed the Security Council was able in 2006 to agree on a fairly clear line, and it was focusing on proliferation, nuclear proliferation, ballistic proliferation of North Korea, and after 2006 until fairly recently, the permanent members, which are the nuclear states of the NPT, and the rest of the Security Council stood quite united in order to demand that North Korea respect these resolutions, comply with them, and the sanctions, and actually they're basically focused only on proliferation. It's not about human rights or humanitarian assistance or the modalities or forms of the regime or anything else. The problem for the Security Council was quite strictly the issue of proliferation, ballistic and nuclear proliferation. Now, we are forced to see that the problem has not been resolved. Since 2006, there were some positive ramifications because it allowed especially a slowdown, a significant slowdown in the progress made both ballistically and in terms of nuclear proliferation. But it didn't bring about a situation where the North Koreans would renounce their nuclear ambitions altogether. And for the last couple of years, the Security Council has stood divided. North Korea continues to proliferate both ballistically and nuclear weapons. There were 6 nuclear tests by North Korea, whereby we might find ourselves in the presence of a 7th test in the coming future. Everything's possible. So, well, the question to the Security Council is what to do. What can we do to prevent further blackmail by the North Korean regime in terms of ballistic and nuclear proliferation? How do we curb them? How do we bring together the Security Council members, starting with the permanent members, who are the nuclear presence? How do we bring them around to rally around a common objective and stand united on this topic to prevent ongoing proliferation? I'm not particularly optimistic on this. I think we need to call on their sense of responsibility. We can't ignore the facts, which are that North Korea violates Security Council resolutions and the NPT, is proliferating increasingly, and is threatening the regional environment, South Korea, Japan, and is doing so with proliferation of systems and non-proliferation regimes. For world security is also at stake. Clearly, the vectors are intercontinental ballistic missiles. So really what we have here is a major threat. So I think the Security Council will discuss it during the month of January. It hasn't been officially decided, wasn't decided today, but several colleagues, especially colleagues in the regions, South Korea and Japan, because South Korea is part of the Security Council right now, they would like to address the topic. But it's one thing to meet and describe the situation, deplore the situation. It would be another thing altogether, in my view, to actually get results in terms of a united Security Council to send a strong message with one voice. Thank you. Suzanne Favaya.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My name is Susan Tehrani from WION News. Regarding the Red Sea and what's happening there, the navies of the United States, Britain, and France have each shot down Houthi-launched drones and missiles. The United States now believes that there should be another international coalition dealing with what's happening in the Red Sea and the Houthis, separate to what's happening in Gaza. I wanted to know your views on that. Thank you.
Well, again, I speak in my national capacity. As a chair, I would say that it's very likely that the Council will meet on the issue soon, probably even tomorrow. So we will confirm this, but I think the situation is bad. There is a repetition of violations and military actions in this area, and of course we cannot leave it like that. We need to take action. In my national capacity, I would just tell you that France, along with 42 partners, jointly condemned on December 20 the attacks committed by Houthis and the threats to the freedom of navigation. We believe nationally that we need to secure shipping in the Red Sea. It's crucial for everything, shipping of food, of fuel, humanitarian aid, and other essential goods. It's a very important route, of course. We cannot give up and accept the blackmail which is there. So maritime safety is extremely important, and it needs to be protected by all means. And we will continue to work on that with our partners. I think it's a shared concern. It's a different issue from Gaza, but again, it's an additional threat posed to the stability of this region.
Ibtisam for
العربي الجديد. Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azim, Al-Arabi Al-Jadid newspaper. So I have two questions. First, today in the morning, the Algerian ambassador, when he talked in the ceremony, he said that one of the goals for Algeria is, in the current situation, as a member of the Security Council, to put an end to the genocide against the Palestinian people in Gaza Strip, and he also emphasized the importance and the urgency for a ceasefire in Gaza. So my question here, does France, the first question is, do you, in your national capacity, do you share these sentiments? What is France going to do during this presidency in order for a ceasefire? And the second question, also on Gaza, given the high number of people civilians who were killed, at least 20,000, does France support an arm embargo on Israel and the Israeli government, or at least a stop of French delivery of weapons to the Israeli government in this current situation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, just a word on this crisis in Gaza, which remains a huge concern. There is no progress, of course. The fightings continues. We should all remind ourselves that it started on October 7 with an absolutely monstrous attack by Hamas on the Israeli population, on Jews. You know, I think probably 1,200 have been killed, a woman raped. It's just everybody saw that. So to a certain degree, we need to keep that in mind. We need to understand that Israel has the right to defend itself and to make sure that these things do not happen again. Everybody knows what the agenda of Hamas is basically eradicating Israel. Let's call a cat a cat. So this is where we are, and it's not acceptable. This being said, while Israel has the right to defend itself, of course, and to go after the terrorist fighters, because what we are talking about is a terrorist attack, it doesn't allow to respond in a disproportionate manner and to go after civilians. And I think what we will certainly support is a reaction that would just make a clear distinctions between terrorist fighters and civilian population, which is not the case now, of course. So what we want to see is a full respect of the Geneva Conventions, the law of the war. The civilians should not be a target. Elders, women, children, they should not be a target. Unfortunately, they are. The numbers are pretty much those you mentioned, so it should stop. And this is why France, again, while recognizing the right of Israel to go after the terrorists from Hamas, certainly would like to see a sustainable cessation of hostilities to make sure that civilians can continue to be protected. I think protection of civilians is of the essence in this case, and that, and second, that humanitarian relief could be provided to Gaza, to the people of Gaza. For the time being, the humanitarian relief is totally insufficient. Whatever you discuss, whether it's food, energy, and drugs, etc. So I think it remains a tragedy. We really want it to stop as soon as possible. The Security Council adopted 2 resolutions, but the resolution, unfortunately, are just focused on the humanitarian relief, which is, of course, needed. Of course, yeah, you need humanitarian relief, humanitarian access. But the role of the Security Council is not just to address the symptoms of the crisis, but to try to fix the crisis. And so I think addressing the humanitarian dimension is totally insufficient. You know, we need to push for a sustainable cessation of hostilities, leading to a permanent ceasefire, which will allow the situation to improve, which will make sure that the civilians are safe, and the sooner the better.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexander. Happy New Year, Ambassador. Good luck this month. Just one follow-up on the meeting on the 23rd, the Middle East debate. You said high level, so are we expecting foreign ministers and foreign ministers from the region as well, I presume? If you could give us some details on that. And then secondly, I don't see a meeting on Sudan other than the ICC regular meeting. The situation there is also very dire. There's been some developments over the weekend, I think, on the political front. Is there a possibility the Council might take up Sudan in the next week or so?
On the first one, I think on the 23rd, it will be it's a monthly debate on Middle East, which we decided to elevate at ministerial level. So I think it's an open debate. So ministers are invited. They will be invited. We expect a number of ministers to show up, including ministers from the Middle East region. So we'll see. I think it's in 3 weeks from now, but I expect a number of ministers to show up on this very day for this meeting. That's one. And second, Sudan, I think you're right. I think at this stage there is just a meeting scheduled with the ICC prosecutor on Sudan, but we discussed that this morning with the colleagues when we discussed the program of work, and there is obviously the strong interest in the Security Council to discuss the situation in Sudan. As you know, there is now a new envoy in charge of Sudan, Mr. Lamamra, former foreign minister of Algeria. So he just started his mandate a couple of weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. So we may or may not ask him to report and to exchange with him. So it remains to be decided, but there is obviously first a need, and second a desire among council members to see what can be done to address the situation in Sudan.
Nabil Al-Arabi.
Thank you so much. Nabil Abi Saab Al Arabi TV station. Yes, okay. Nabil Abi Saab Al Arabi TV station. On Gaza, France and other countries submitted a joint application in the ICJ on Myanmar. It's a genocide case. And my question is, do you consider that the situation in Gaza qualifies to be addressed or looked at by the ICJ in this case? And in both cases, what should be the reaction in the Security Council, whether it's on Myanmar or in Gaza? And my second question is on Lebanon. Is France really working on arrangements that include pushing back Hezbollah from the border, and for how deep and under what conditions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the first one, I said what I had to say on Gaza before. We are very concerned with the situation. We want it to be resolved as soon as possible. Of course, there will be legal implications if the international law is violated by one side, by all sides. It's pretty clear that there have been a violation of international law by different sides, if you look at this file from the very beginning, and we'll see what the consequences will be. As you just said, the International Court of Justice has been seized of the matter, so I will not comment on this one. You know, France is a strong supporter of the ICJ. We'll see what they decide to on this matter, and we'll make sure that we'll support the outcome of the decision. But I will not. The same with the ICC and the decision by ICC. We are a strong supporter of international justice, whether it's criminal justice with ICC, whether it's ICJ for international law, and we certainly don't want we won't certainly encroach their mandates. Regarding Lebanon, again, we want full implementation of Resolution 1701, which respects the sovereignty of Lebanon. It means that the UNIFIL has a mandate, a role to play, and probably do more. It means that the Lebanese forces should do more as well. It means that the resolution itself should be fully respected, including the blue line, which is very important. And we need to make sure that Hezbollah, which is very present in this region, do not escalate and respect this situation as well. So I think we will continue to be extremely vigilant and to put messages on all sides, meaning, you know, Israel, the government of Lebanon, Hezbollah, of course, and encouraging and protecting UNIFIL. The French Minister for Defense has been there in the recent hours and days, so we are monitoring the situation very closely.
Yuya for Kyoto News.
Thank you, Ambassador. So my name is Yuya from Kyoto News, Japanese media. So I will follow up question about the high-level meeting about the Middle East. So can you get any progress to finish the conflict, including the ceasefire? And the second question is, so what's your first priority issue during your presidency? As I know, so there are so many issues, Gaza or Ukraine or climate change and Haiti, whatever. So what's your first priority during your presidency?
Priority?
Yeah.
Yeah, our priorities is to try to achieve progress on the hot spots, the big conflicts, you know. So this is pretty much, I think these are legitimate and relevant priorities. I think you may have seen that we didn't suggest a thematic debate this month. We leave it for others. We think the Security Council should focus on the current wars and make sure that we improve the situation in the Middle East, with Ukraine, in Sudan, in the Sahel region, in the Horn of Africa. As you may have seen, we will also discuss Haiti, where the situation remains a nightmare and where we try to push for the deployment of police force. So our plate is full, and we are realistic. I think we are pragmatic. We certainly do not believe we will fix all these issues in the next 4 weeks, but we want to focus on the hotspots, on the crisis, and make sure that the Security Council can have a useful contribution to those, and that's it.
Edward for CCTV.
Hi, Ambassador. This is the Zhishu with China Central Television. First, Happy New Year, and wish you all the best on the presidency. So my question falls to two parts. The first part in the capacity of France. What's your observation or analysis of the execution of the last resolution on Gaza, which adopted more than a week ago? And you just mentioned there were two resolutions only about humanitarian relief, and they are not they only address the symptoms of the crisis. Will France have, let's say, another draft resolution maybe this month to address even wider issues on Gaza? And second part, as the president of Security Council, are you ready if something like what happened in December, the very long and frustrating process happened with the draft resolution? Will you be ready for that? Will you be ready to process that, that long negotiation, and how would you do that? Thank you.
Well, first on Gaza, in my national capacity, I would say that I'm not sure the two resolutions adopted by the Security Council have been implemented yet. They are calling basically for humanitarian access, humanitarian relief, which is good, of course, but which is probably insufficient. But even that, I'm not sure implementation have been there. That's a fact. Humanitarian access and humanitarian relief for the people of Gaza is lacking behind. So we will continue to push for that. I believe that we are just expecting a report by the SG on the implementation of this resolution. So in my national capacity, I strongly support the SG. I strongly support the UN agencies, whether it's WFP, UNICEF, UNRWA, of course, which has been an incredible target during this war. I don't remember the number of victims in UNRWA staff, which is just a shame, of course. And UNRWA has been a very, very useful and efficient tool since its creation in the late 40s. So we need UNRWA, we need WFP, we need UNICEF, we need also the ICRC, which is not part of the UN, and they need our help to be able to work, and they need more money to be able to deliver more aid to the people of Gaza. We need more crossing points, not just Rafah, but with also Kerem Shalom, maybe also the maritime access between Cyprus and Gaza. We need more access, more crossing points, etc. And we are not there yet. We should push for that. So we will continue to push for that, of course. You mentioned what I said before. Of course, dealing with humanitarian access, humanitarian relief is basically addressing the symptoms. If you don't address the war and the political issues, underlying issues, you may well find yourself dealing with humanitarian access for the next 10 or 15 years, like in any crisis. So I think we should really, as a council, refocus on the underlying issues, and also in the short term push for a sustainable ceasefire, because this is the only way you can move to the next phase. By explaining that France wants a sustainable ceasefire, it doesn't mean that we would just, accept that the Hamas terrorists should be protected. No. But we, again, as I said at the beginning, we need to protect the civilians. Gaza, it's 2 million civilians. It's not 2 million terrorists. No, it's just children, elders, women, and we should just avoid the confusion. So that's. And regarding the negotiation, the presidency has a role to facilitate. So any member of the council can come with a project, with a resolution, can negotiate, and that's its role. I think it's the presidency is not the boss of the others. It's just facilitating, organizing, trying to ease the work of the council. But on this one, if there is a chance to make progress, I think we, as a chair, will do whatever we can to achieve progress. We will have this ministerial on the 23rd, and it's probably, I hope it could be a useful contribution.
So France is ready.
What?
France is ready.
Always.
Linda for NPR.
Thank you, Ambassador. My question goes back to Gaza, and I believe you said that France, would like a sustained cessation of hostilities and a ceasefire. I was just wondering, as I know, the U.S., clearly Israel, but the U.S. is against a ceasefire, believing that it would only benefit Hamas. And so I was wondering, can you just clarify what France's view is compared to the U.S.?
Again, our national position, I don't see any contradiction, to tell you the truth, between allowing actions against the terrorists, okay, which France has been doing itself after 2015 when we were attacked, which we have been doing in Syria, in Iraq, etc. So it's okay to go after terrorists. And second, it's not okay to go after civilians, and protection of civilians should be a priority. So you need to combine both. It's difficult. I just want to remind you that even President Biden 2 or 3 weeks ago said on record that indiscriminate bombings should stop. And we are asking nothing else than that. Indiscriminate bombing should stop, meaning that attacking the terrorists is okay, bombing the civilian is not. So I think there is not much difference.
Sari for Anadolu, and it will be our last question for today.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais essayer de demander.
Thank you very much. I will be trying to use my French, even if it's somewhat rudimentary. There's been talk about voluntary migration of Palestinians in Gaza. What is your national position as France regarding forced displacement of Palestinians?
Je vais peut-être vous répondre en français.
You spoke in French, so I'm going to field that question in French. Thank you very much. It goes without saying that France is opposed to forced displacement of populations, of people. That's very clear-cut in this specific case and broadly speaking as well. So we will not support forced displacement of people. In Gaza's case, in the case of Israel, it's more or less obvious that the Gaza Strip is inhabited by Palestinians. Our goal is for Palestinians to be able to continue living there in safety and security and under good conditions. That should be the priority. It's not about shutting them out of Gaza, about recolonizing Gaza. These are harebrained ideas. I think what's essential is what we talked about a little bit earlier, that is putting an end to the current military operation. I'm not saying that we should stop military operations targeting the military, but we should stop targeting civilians because Palestinians should be able to live in peace in their homes, and bombing of civilians in the Gaza Strip should end. Hospitals, schools are being destroyed, that sort of thing. We want that to end. It goes without saying that the key rationale for that is that Hamas is using the civilian population as human shields, hiding in schools and so on. And that is true. However, whenever there's a doubt, you shouldn't bomb a school.
Thank you, everyone. We're all set for today. Have a good afternoon and see you soon at the Stakeout Pound.